The cloud strategy actually has been very unique for us because I don't know, if you guys know, Avison Young has grown last 2 years by acquisition only. And by the time I arrived to the company, we had actually 14 different cloud providers. So just so, it was very, very complex. We went through a comprehensive kind of assessment into, what our needs are and we kind of like pros and cons for various cloud providers. And essentially, we noticed most of them are identical in the type of services they provide. And their securities are subpar at best. And so we made a lot of back and forward decision. But from a business point of view, we just felt like it's too much and too many vendors to even deal with. So we centralized it and we decided to go with one provider. We chose Azure as our platform, and we have gone with that. And we are in the journey of creating a hybrid platform because we think we can control our security domain much better within our own platform. So that hasn't materialized yet, but we're hoping that's going to be the next phase. But essentially for us, everything we do is within the cloud. We are consumer of PaaS, IaaS, everything essentially, and it's been critical for us to get it right. We noticed quite an improvement in terms of productivity by removing some of those. And all our developers, whether they were used to doing Google development or they were used to doing Azure or AWS, they all kind of learned to use the Azure, and they're doing pretty good. So we are very happy with our choice, and so far it's going very well. But ultimately, we know that we need to add additional cloud. Even a multi-cloud may be something in our future, but right now we are focusing on a hybrid version, and that's all we're going to be focusing on.
We validate our strategy based on outcomes we want to achieve, and security resilience is top of mind that we are leveraging from cloud providers and some of the plug and play capabilities. Obviously, it's the way that you leverage it and use it. It could be very insecure, but we see the foundational services that are there that we could tap into are cost prohibitive for us to put in place ourselves in some cases. So the real key piece is, just to circle back, is achieve security, resiliency, and speed to market are the areas that we want to validate. When I look at the cloud strategy, we kind of look at it at multiple fronts. So from a SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, we try to leverage those IT partners as much as possible. The key piece around that, or caveat, is that we must adhere to our TPRM, our third-party risk management practices. And that's the trickiest part. Like, obviously, I'd want to take advantage of development and hyperscalers as much as possible, but they have to also adhere to those governance practices that we've put in place. And that allows us to, select them as quickly as possible because we have that framework. On the cloud computing, our strategy is to leverage cloud as much as possible. And that's a little bit different than obviously the PaaS, SaaS, IaaS providers. So this allows us to manage the scaling, speed to deliver with our IT services. We want to take advantage of the ecosystem that's been provided, the hyperscalers. And like, good example, just recently we moved our call centers to Amazon Connect, and we use Salesforce as the front end. That they spend millions every month on that partnership. It's cost prohibitive for us to build a similar call center from an infrastructure perspective, with the carrier diversity to the entire API economy that they offer in terms of tapping into all of that information and the omni-channel, smart bots, all the different things that we could do. It's unbelievable. So that's where we try and take advantage of that, and obviously we look at those outcomes. The other key area, big focus, is for myself and for all CIOs, I feel, is to de-risk your organization. I do feel that the resiliency, cybersecurity first aspect, if built properly, and then modernizing the monolithic application could be a path forward, depending on the company's or business situation. Some situations, the data center or the location or the equipment was not ideal. So we want to de-risk reputational impact, revenue impact from being compromised. and then build that flexibility from an infrastructure perspective, remove the rigid infrastructure, and then we can start looking, and that's what we're doing. We'll look at our modernization. So we've moved almost everything to cloud, our commercial applications, so that we don't have that rigid infrastructure, and that we now can have that flexibility with the application to make the different changes. And again, circling back to some of the strategies and how we want to make sure that we made the right one, we see the resiliency, we see the higher level of cybersecurity that we tapped into, that we put in place as a foundation. And our speed to market with our cloud strategy has been able to deliver for our customers, for our business stakeholders.
We are at the very beginning of our cloud journey. We are very ambitious. We are currently having 2 ERP implementations, 1 HRIS implementation, and just starting an M365 deployment. So we have a lot on the go right now. All of these are going to, all the current initiatives are going to be a contributor in defining the cloud strategy. One of the ERP we're implementing is a SaaS application. And clearly, the M365 deployment is also going to get us a little bit further on our cloud journey. Very much relating to what Martin was saying, it is going to be a hybrid model for us. We have already decided on Azure as the platform. In terms of how we're going to define this strategy, security is going to be paramount. So that's probably going to be our top priority, and also speed of service and the ability to deliver as efficiently as possible, really. So those are our top 2 criteria.
We are another one that's doing hybrid. So we're currently in year 3 of 5 on our strategy. And while we're implementing our cloud solutions, we need to be driving value and really ensuring the alignment between technology and our business partners. And as cost and value are a big part of the decision matrix moving forward, we need to be able to increase transparency and ensure we're aligned with business strategies moving forward. With the highly fixed cost base that we have on-prem, we're looking for increased flexibility and agility that cloud offers, as many are. Moving forward, we'll have to think about efficiency and effectiveness and challenge the historical views and current thinking more frequently. When we began, we started with IaaS, with migrating VMs from on-prem to cloud. As we progressed, we started evaluating PaaS for Kubernetes and managed database platforms. Our next steps are to look at data warehouses and data lakes in the cloud to give us opportunities for increased data analytics and AI capabilities.
Like many have said before me, or today, that we've been on a cloud journey for several years, executing a hybrid strategy and incrementally building into that hybrid strategy as those use cases needed them. So today, 60% of our applications are in the cloud, and we've reached that goal organically in a cloud-first strategy. So anytime we had a new technology choice that we were making, anytime we were doing a refresh, we used that cloud-first strategy and found the appropriate platform in that hybrid strategy to move those workloads. We're now shifting to that longer tail of the lift and shift and or a transformation, and are getting ready to reduce our data center footprint and our hardware needs by about 50%. And again, as those contracts and refresh periods are coming up. What's also emerging, however, is a new operating model in this cloud environment, and a different type of operationalization is emerging from approving repeatable patterns and managing API platforms and operationalizing those tools that we need in a hybrid cloud environment. We're also thinking about new operating cost models and how we establish the maintenance of those, the operating model impacts on where work gets done, and especially in IT governance, which could probably be a topic in and of itself in a cloud environment.
Cloud or technology or digital transformation is very much synonymous with the cloud and rapid transformation in business. So I think one of the major challenges I've seen within Interac and other organizations that I've been in is really, embracing change. Transformation is very much related with embracing change and adopting agility and agile delivery as a mindset in the organization. So that's one thing. And I feel that's one of the most difficult things. Technology is something that's doable, fixable, and, we can work with that. As far as the transition is concerned, adoption, so we're driven by, our risk posture and regulation and privacy, security, data residency requirements. So we have a strategy of a hybrid cloud where we're building a private on-prem cloud, which primarily again is driven by the criteria that I outlined, but also from certain non-functional requirements where, the public cloud does not offer us some of the RTO, RPOs, or availability requirements that we want. You recently may have heard about the real-time rail for Payments Canada that we're implementing. So now we're going to have electronic funds transfer within, government entities, which is key. And so this is a critical service, and we have RTO, RPOs that are very stringent. So that drives us to build an on-prem cloud service that we can control and guarantee those non-functional requirements. So it all is driven by, the business priorities, residency requirements, regulation, and the risk posture of the organization. As it relates to non-core applications, the general strategy is to go for SaaS. We don't want to, be responsible for ongoing operation of things like HRIS and portals and things like that. Those can go on the SaaS while we focus on our core technology infrastructure and move with that.
We're a few years into this, and we took a cloud and SaaS first approach a few years ago. So I can give you lots of tips, techniques, steps that we went through, but really how it's accelerated was imagination. So where we started was to use numbers. If we were spending 80% of our investment on maintaining the business and 20% on growing, we said, what if we were able to get to 50-50, right? So we're not spending money and investing on infrastructure and people and servers and all that. We could change the mix. And then imagine how that investment now changes profile. So there's a much larger investment in growth. And so we showed that at the beginning, and that's what we've achieved. So we've showed value along the way, and that's really what's accelerated it. You do get cost efficiencies in my perspective just from going to the cloud itself, but that's not why we did it. We did it to change the profile and the mix of the investment. So because we're a growth company, and that's essentially how we've accelerated it. I also think in here, it's really important. Your HR system is actually really important, whether in the future and in the cloud. You have to have that identity access control management between your job positions and your profile positions and the type of things people can access. You can have many SaaS solutions, you can have cloud solutions out there, but you need to really centralize your positions and the access controls they can have, and have an intermediary between that. That's really, as you get mature on your cloud strategy, that's really beneficial going forward. So really it comes down to change the mix, change the investment profile. That's the value of the cloud, and that's how we've accelerated it.
We've made significant investments already to move to cloud platforms, both at the front and the back end. But I wouldn't say that means that we're good. It presents different challenges than dealing with a hybrid or legacy environment. With multiple cloud platforms and providers, we need to establish the architecture to align the systems and processes seamlessly. There's so many overlapping functions between the providers, so the architecture standards and integration processes become extremely important. Another consideration is that we are now reliant on external providers for stable and secure services. The level of vendor responsiveness varies, even with premier support plans. I think the best response time we have is an hour, but when it's a critical operations, an hour is a really long time. So what we're doing to mitigate that risk is investing in our infrastructure people. We have to have a higher skill set internally so that we can really problem solve and guide the vendors and not be reliant on waiting for vendor troubleshooting on critical issues. Overall, I would say I'll probably take these challenges over the challenges I've had in legacy environments, but I wouldn't say that the cloud journey is without challenges. It certainly has its own unique challenges, and I think that loss of control over the systems themselves is certainly a bit of a cultural shift for the teams, in particularly on the infrastructure side.
I kind of herald back to my experiences, and I really look at two kind of key principles that I always look for in evaluating a cloud strategy and its strength. And to me, and I think it was made mention earlier, perception truly is often viewed as reality. When you're dealing with a new initiative to move to cloud, any kind of downtime, that 1 hour that Catherine spoke about that every CSP has in their contractual SLAs, at the wrong time could be detrimental to gaining acceptance, onboarding from the application. So it's planning and mitigating for those, understanding that they do have it, and then have a response and an action to make it easy in order for it to be a seamless adoption by the application teams to use the cloud. And even going to what Monique was saying was adopt their release cadence for opportunistic times to bring in those new enhancements so that it really just flows and those dominoes start falling, as Eric said. The second one to me I think encapsulates everything that was said before me, and that's maniacally try to reduce the complexity, or at least limit the complexity in your deployment. And for me, number one, I'm sorry, I don't remember if Martin or Mahmood talked about picking a single cloud provider. The reality of, the fears of vendor lock-in really truly never did materialize. And the amount of gains that you can get and advancements in accepting 20% lock-in far outstripes the complexity of trying to adopt a multi-hybrid cloud strategy and moving forward in the organization. So keep the team small, leverage SaaS-based vendors wherever possible. They certainly are great at what they do, kind of pick that cloud. And, part of complexity is often buried in, a lack of transparency. So identify your stakeholders, bring them to the table early, especially security. Nothing is a momentum killer like bringing them in at the very end, from my experience.